Good morning, good morning, good morning, Northwest UU Church and UU Detroit. Can I hear you make a joyful noise? We are going to begin this morning with some joyful music, number 1030 in your teal hymnals, Sia Hamba. Please rise in body and or spirit if you're feeling it. Good morning, First UU Detroit and Northwest UU. It is so lovely to be here with all of you gorgeous humans today, and it is important that you showed up this morning, because gathering together in community is an act of rebellion against isolation and hopelessness. And what do we say?
We are rebels for hope.
We sure are. Also, we are people that prize authenticity and presence over perfection. We are going to be doing a Detroit service today. This is Detroit's human rights. Every year on the close to the 10th of December, which was the signing of the International Declaration of Human Rights, UU Detroit does a big Human Rights Day service. And we are going to be doing their script and their order of service, but it might not match what's on the slides. So that is, and this is something that Martha and I forgot to talk to, or I forgot to talk to Martha about, and so nobody could talk to Jackson. So we have Jackson back there filling in for Michael. He's doing an awesome job. And we are going to roll with the imperfect punches. I would like to, excuse me, I would like to invite Amelia up to light our chalice this morning.
Oh dear. Oh, yep, got it. We begin service by lighting the chalice, which is the symbol of faith that we share with words from our vision statement. Please repeat after me. Let me see. We light this flame.
We light this flame
To liberate truth.
to liberate truth,
Radiate kindness.
radiate kindness,
And love courageously.
and love courageously.
Nice job.
Ow. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this space where we are gathering as one connected church community. We are gathering both virtually and in person, and so if we could take a moment to wave to those online. We've got cameras back there. Everyone wave to your neighbor, say hello. And hello to the lovely faces online. My name is Eli, and my pronouns are he, him, and I will be your worship leader this morning. I am joined on the chancel by Reverend Julie Brock. We have music today by Todd Ballou, and we have our joint choir. And we have Steve Curtin on bass and various instruments. Yay!
We are a joint service of the First Unitarian Universalist Church of Detroit and Northwest UU. UU Detroit has been gathering for more than 100 years in our sanctuary on the corner of Cass and Forest. But we were not the first ones there. Our church building occupies the ancestral, traditional, and contemporary lands of the Anishinaabe, in particular the Three Fires Confederacy, the Ojibwe, Ottawa, and Potawatomi people. We acknowledge Indigenous people and communities who live here now, and those who were forcibly removed from their homelands. In offering this land acknowledgement, we affirm Indigenous sovereignty, history, and experiences. We also acknowledge people of African descent who were forcibly removed from their land and separated from their families through kidnapping and enslavement, and pay reverence and respect to them for building this country's infrastructure and economy with no compensation or reparations to date.
That's just going to be a thing today, I guess. If you're new here, welcome. We do have a visitor book out on the table. If you're new and you're from, please try to indicate which congregation you're visiting with. That would be helpful. But the best way is to say hello at coffee hour afterwards, and we would love to talk to you. You can always find out more about the events and life of the churches in our weekly newsletters. But a few things to highlight are, as we approach the winter holidays, we are going to have some extra worship services, and they'll be in a few different spots. So here's a quick rundown. Next Sunday, the 22nd, UU Farmington has invited us to their winter solstice service in the morning at 10:30 a.m. That evening, the Northwest UU candlelight service will be here at 7 p.m. Okay? On Tuesday, the 24th, there will be a joint Christmas service at 6 p.m. at First Congregational Church in Detroit. Not 4605 Cass, First Congregational Church. It's right down the road. And then on Sunday, the 29th, worship will be on Zoom. Pajama church. So wear your fanciest pajamas that you got for Christmas. And then finally, we'll bring in the New Year together with our New Year's ritual here at Northwest UU on Sunday, January 5th. So for Sunday morning, the next 3 weeks are Farmington, Zoom, and Northwest. And we'll have 2 candlelight services on the 22nd here and the 24th at First Congregational in Detroit. I'm going to spare you a quiz, but it's not like, you got to keep it in your head. And of course, they'll be in our newsletters and things like that. So if you're not getting the newsletter, please let us know and we'll get you signed up. Last couple announcements. There will be a holiday portrait session with RJ and Cheryl Photography after the service at UU Farmington next Sunday. You can pre-register through the link in the newsletter or the QR code in the order of service. And then finally, Amnesty International is doing a human rights presentation in the multipurpose room after service, so please join us for that. That's it.
Eli, this is all good stuff to know, but the most important thing that you can know is that no matter who you are,
What you believe or who you love,
where you're from, or what identities you hold,
with all your joys and gifts,
with all of your pain and your history,
you are welcome and wanted here.
we now invite you to an hour of respite outside the demands of daily life.
Come, let us worship together.
Spontaneous and fun, we decided that we were going to throw together a little last-minute human rights pageant. So I need everybody's help with this pageant, though. We have our actors. They've run through it once. What could go wrong? But I need help from you all, too, because I need to demonstrate that these congregations understand what is good and right and what should not be. So if you hear something during this pageant at any point that you think is good and right, I want you to yell yay. And if you hear something that you think should not be and is an abomination, you yell boo. Let's practice really quickly, right? Because of these congregations, there are going to be a whole bunch of refugee kids who get boots to go through a winter in a new climate. That's right. And something that's obviously wrong, like Chicago-style pizza is superior to Detroit-style pizza. That's right. Okay, all right, listen, there can be a difference of opinion, but some opinions are wrong. So, without further ado, I would like to ask Annika, our narrator of our story, to come up to the stage.
Yay! Once upon a time, there was a village famed for its wise religious leaders. The rabbi was the head of the temple and was renowned for their knowledge and compassion. The rabbi was always making proclamations that changed the way people viewed the world and lived their lives.
The earth is round and revolves around the sun. Yay! Washing our hands can prevent us from getting sick. Yay! The moon is made of cheese.
They were almost always right. Soon people from all over heard that there was someone in the village who could change the way people viewed the world and lived their lives, and they flocked to the village to seek the rabbi's advice.
It's good to know one's skills and use them to benefit the world.
The merchants and their pets in the town saw the incoming crowds as a way to profit. One merchant lived by the only road that led to the river.
If anyone wants water while they're here, they'll have to pay me first.
So many people coming. Housing is a premium. Anyone who wants to sleep with a roof over their head will have to change. Okay. With so many people coming, housing is at a premium. Wow, oh my gosh. Okay. Anyone who wants to sleep with a roof over their head will have to change triple the fee.
One merchant. One merchant was the only apothecary in town.
I am the only one in town who knows how to make medicine. With so many people traveling, they are bound to get sick. I can charge a fortune for my medicine and get rich off of this venture. Yay!
One by one, travelers came to the town and the rabbi was able to help them.
Your relationships will improve if you set better boundaries. Yay! Your self-worth isn't reliant on other people's approval of you. Yay! You'll enjoy life more if you make your sandwiches with Miracle Whip instead of mayo.
They were almost always right. After the travelers saw the rabbi, however, they couldn't find what they needed to prepare for their long journeys home.
You're thirsty, but you don't have money? Too bad.
Yes, I have an open room, and I'll keep it open for someone who could pay my exorbitant fee. Y'all sleep outside. Wait, I lost my pot. I can't find where I was. Oh, here. I think. No. Read this. Read off mine. No, that's the wrong line. That's the wrong line. I have plenty of medicine, but if I can sell fewer people at a higher price, I won't have to make as much and work as hard. Yay!
The rabbi saw what was happening and became perplexed.
I don't want the sharing of my wisdom to result in people not getting their basic needs met.
So the rabbi thought with their incredible mind and felt with their incredible heart and came up with a plan. That night, the rabbi invited the merchants and their pets to their home for a special private proclamation. The merchants and their pets, feeling very important, accepted the invitation.
Dear merchants of the town, I have a very special secret to tell you. Amongst all the travelers coming to the town, a very special visitor has arrived.
Is it the president?
Is it the Pope? Is it Elvis? Close. It is the Messiah, the one who has come to create peace and harmony on earth. I have called you here because I know the Messiah is here, but I don't know who they are. I need you to be my eyes and ears in the town. If you see the Messiah, I need you to treat them with dignity and respect. Make sure that they have all their basic needs met. Dignity and keep them comforted with lots of electronic saxophone background music.
The rabbi was almost always right. The merchants and their pets went back to their businesses, but they soon realized they didn't know who amongst them might be the Messiah.
I'll have to give everyone access to water. It'll put me out of a job, but I can't deprive them.
Say that real much slower.
I'll have to give everyone access to the river. It will put me out of a job, but I can't deprive the Messiah of water.
I'll have to open up all my rooms at a reasonable rate. I can't have the Messiah sleeping outside. I'll have to make sure everyone gets the medicine they need. What if the Messiah gets sick and can't pay for help?
And so they did. The water merchant opened access to the river, and everyone could partake freely of the natural resource. The landlord rented out rooms, and when all their rooms were full, started to rely on the hospitality of townspeople. Several housing cooperatives were created, and people felt good and safe, and because no one was sleeping on the street. The apothecary began to give out medicine based on need, not ability to pay. Business was still booming, and they found they couldn't make enough medicine. So they trained the water merchant how to make medicine, and the two worked together and became the best of friends. Everyone was so busy making sure everyone had what they needed, they almost forgot about the Messiah. Almost. One day, the merchants remembered the proclamation of the rabbi and went back to see them.
So who was it?
Are they still here? Do I have to tell people I've come to appreciate electric saxophone background music? The Messiah is still here. They are one of us, or perhaps all of us. None of us could ever know what one will do with their lives and when given the resources we need to live at our full potential. That is why each person must be able to have their basic human needs met, even if they don't have enough money, even if they don't have apparent skills, even if they really, really enjoy electronic saxophone background music.
The town continues to grow and expand, and each person who joined the team was treated as if they might be the one to create harmony and bring peace on earth. And because of this, all of them were.
I'm going to go ahead and give one of the kids the flame to carry out, and then we're going to start singing number 159 in our gray hymnal. And the kids will leave while we are singing. "159, rise in body and our spirit." You guys, I just fired Eli from doing the offering because what's written here is that we need to raise money for Freedom House to have a bunch of boots for their kids, but we raised enough. Everyone at Freedom House who is newly facing a Michigan winter or facing a Michigan winter in a new boot size is going to get a new pair of boots because of the efforts of our two congregations. So today's Share the Plate is going to be split with Freedom House to give folks whatever else they might need this holiday season. And UU Detroit. We honor your generosity by committing to ensure that our collective resources do a greater good for ourselves and our world than any could have done individually.
I've been rehired. Please read aloud the words of dedication, which are written in your order of service. We will say them together. To the work of creating beloved community within and beyond these walls, we dedicate ourselves and our offerings. We do have a few things to share from the community today. If you're here and I say your name, please raise your hand so we can see who you are. The first is from Laura Orton. Thank you, Laura. Laura asks us, please light a candle from two people. Their brother Tom, who is going through cancer treatment, and friend Deb, who is going through treatment for lymphoma. And then we have a couple joys to share. Our very own Abby says, just yesterday, I graduated from Wayne State University. She goes on to say a bachelor's in music technology, and says, "This is a very special moment for me as I was not able to walk back in 2020 for my high school graduation due to COVID." Congratulations, Abby. And keep the applause going. We have a very similar one from Jim and Linda Gobeski. Molly Gobeski also completed her bachelor's in nursing at Wayne State yesterday. Bright young minds coming out into the world. Abby, you're not allowed to leave us ever. Everyone wants to take a deep breath for these and also the joys and the sorrows that are in the sanctuary of our hearts for this prayer. Sources of radiance and resilience, keep watch with those who work or watch or weep this night. May the suffering be soothed, may the sick be tended, and may the weary find rest. May the dying and those who love them find peace, and may the joyous be shielded. And may all know that we are surrounded in a love that is with us always, a web that connects us to all that exists. May we take a few moments of silence to be with each other in this sacred space. We will come out singing. Not going to touch it this time. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights, also known as UDHR, is a milestone document in the history of human rights. Drafted by representatives with different legal and cultural backgrounds from all regions of the world, the Declaration was proclaimed by the United Nations General Assembly in Paris on the 10th of December, 1948, as a common standard of achievements for all peoples and all nations. It sets out, for the first time, fundamental human rights to be universally protected. The preamble of the document is as follows. Whereas recognition of the inherent dignity and of the equal and inalienable rights of all members of the human family is the foundation of freedom, justice, and peace in the world. Whereas disregard and contempt for human rights have resulted in barbarous acts which have outraged the conscience of mankind, and the advent of a world in which human beings shall enjoy freedom of speech and belief and freedom from fear and want has been proclaimed as the highest aspiration of the common people. Whereas it is essential, if man is not to be compelled to have recourse as a last resort to rebellion against tyranny and oppression, that human rights should be protected by the rule of law. Whereas it is essential to promote the development of friendly relations between nations, whereas the people of the United Nations in the Charter reaffirmed their faith in fundamental human rights, in the dignity and worth of the human person, and in the equal rights of men and women, and have determined to promote social progress and better standards of life and larger freedom, whereas member states have pledged themselves to achieve, in cooperation with the United Nations, the promotion of universal respect for and observance of human rights and fundamental freedoms, whereas a common understanding of these rights and freedoms is of the greatest importance for the full realization of this pledge, now therefore, the General Assembly proclaims this Universal Declaration of Human Rights as a common standard of achievement for all peoples and all nations, to the end that every individual and every organ of society, keeping this declaration constantly in mind, shall strive by teaching and education to promote respect for these rights and freedoms, and by progressive measures, national and international, to secure their universal and effective recognition and observance, both among the peoples of member states themselves and among the peoples of territories under their jurisdiction. The Declaration then goes on to list articles that lay out what rights are included in the Declaration of Human Rights. And I'll read from Article 22, Section 1. Everyone has the right to a standard of living adequate for the health and well-being of himself and his family, including food, clothing, housing, and medical care, and necessary social services, and the right to security in the event of unemployment, sickness, disability, widowhood, old age, or the lack of livelihood in circumstances beyond his control.
Can I get an amen? In 1948, the United Nations wrote into the international law and codified basic human rights for every single human being on the planet. And they did this for a couple of reasons. One, because it's the right thing to do. Of morality and conscience, that every person should be able to have their basic needs met. They did it as a matter of morality, but they also did it as a matter of politics. Because it is true that in every place where authoritarians have taken over, that has coincided with a degradation of human rights, both before and after. Democracies don't turn into dictatorships without first having the human rights of the citizens being eroded. And they saw this because they were doing this in 1948, right after World War II, right after the Holocaust, right after we saw Hitler and the Nazi regime take over Germany. And do you know what was going on in Germany right before then? Folks blamed Germany for World War I, so they put all kinds of economic sanctions on Germany. And the citizens of Germany could not make their basic human needs. And so they were scared, and they were hungry, and they were starving, and they started to listen to strong men who said they could solve their problem, because that is what always happens. Human rights and democracy go hand in hand. Authoritarian dictatorships and the erosion of human rights go hand in hand. So, that made me a little scared this last couple of weeks when I've seen what's going on in our very own country. There's this story that has been sweeping the nation about Brian Thompson, a CEO of a healthcare company who was killed in the streets by a political vigilante single gunman. And the reaction to this story has been wild and far-reaching. Some people have said that this gunman, Luigi Mangione, is the person that is in custody and who it looks like evidence points toward him being the person that committed this murder. Some people are looking at Luigi Mangione as a folk hero. There are people who are lining up in the streets wherever Luigi is being transported and cheering for him, saying, "Free Luigi." There is somebody who was holding up a sign outside of his being transported that said, "Thank you for avenging my mother." There are other people who are flooding the internet with memes, making a joke out of this man's death. They have said things like, "Sorry, my compassion is out of network." I mean, it's not unwitty, right? And there are other people who have said, specifically Jake Tapper on CNN, that there is something wrong with the moral fiber of a country that would react that way to a murder. I've been thinking about this a lot, y'all, because when I heard that the CEO of a healthcare company had been murdered in the street, I did not cheer, but I could find no compassion. Is there something wrong with my soul? Is there something wrong with me that I could not find it within me to care that this man was a husband and a father and his life had been taken from him without trial? Here's the thing. The crying masses that are cheering at Luigi's picture when DJs put it up at a concert, they're reacting to something, and I don't know that it is just our own moral failings. One of the other things that has come out of this murder is that people have begun telling their stories, their horror stories, at things that their family has faced at the hands of health insurance companies. I'm going to tell you a little bit of mine, because I've also experienced the other side. I've experienced a different way. My son has level 3 nonverbal autism. He is probably going to need significant care for the rest of his life. And when he was diagnosed with this, we were living in California. And this is what happened. We took him to the doctor, and the doctor gave him an assessment, and then called in a developmental pediatrician who seconded her assessment, and he was diagnosed with autism. And then the state of California did their own assessment and said that he needed 35 to 40 hours of therapy a week, so they sent someone to my house and they paid for it. While I was finding out that everything that I thought my motherhood would be was not going to be that, while I was dealing with my own change of circumstances, I didn't have to worry. Now, it was bureaucratically complicated. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. There were lots of numbers to call. But I did not have to fight nor worry about my bank account to make sure my kid was going to get basically what he needed. And then I moved to Michigan. And the state said that they would pay for 3 to 4 hours of his care, and that if I wanted more, I needed to go to a private institution. Well, thanks to you fine folks, I have really, really good health insurance. So I could, and I did. I went to a private autism center in Ferndale. They were the ones that had the least amount of waiting time to get into their program at 8 months. And so everyone was telling me, you need to get your kid in therapy right now while his brain is young and elastic. And they said 8 months. And I said, all right, well, and that was the closest, the shortest waiting list. There were other waiting lists in other centers. And I said, well, let's get him on the list. And they said, well, he needs a diagnosis first. And I said, he's been diagnosed in California, and his doctor here has reaffirmed that diagnosis. And also, have you met him? And they were like, yeah, but Blue Cross insists that if you are going to get autism care through Blue Cross Blue Shield insurance, that you have to go to one of their diagnostic centers. So my son's doctor said that my son had autism, but Blue Cross Blue Shield wanted to make sure that they agreed, so they didn't want to have to, pay for something if they didn't agree they should be paying for it. And I thought, all right, I'll take him to a center. That sounds easy enough. Anyone that met my kid would say, yep, he's got autism. 1 to 2 years on a wait list for each of these diagnostic centers. So I was supposed to wait 1 to 2 years to get my kid diagnosed, to then get on another wait list to get him service, by which time he was going to have all of the most formative years of his life while he needed these therapies gone. Because Blue Cross wanted to avoid paying for my child. They say preachers are supposed to preach from their scars and not from their wounds. So I won't get into what happened when my husband needed medical care last year. But this is the tip of the iceberg of what I could tell you of the countless hours I have spent on the phone fighting people who are making billions of dollars off not giving my kid his basic care. And I am one of many people, and I am lucky because I have insurance and access to lawyers. Can you imagine all of the families out there who got that same 3 to 4 months that didn't have health insurance or didn't have adequate health insurance? Their kids just don't get the therapies that they need. And so I don't know if there's something wrong with our souls for realizing that there's something in a system, that the person that was killed is an architect of a system that profits off the injury and illness and not treating the injury and illness of others. I think maybe we as a collective consciousness are starting to wake up to the idea that we've got to take better care of each other, because we're seeing what happens in this country when we don't. And there is a history in the United States of not publicly mourning when terrible people die. I remember when people were celebrating in the streets when Osama bin Laden was killed. Here's the thing, I know, Osama bin Laden, right? He was like directly responsible for the killing of more than 3,000 Americans, so that's a little different, right? The NIH in 2021 did a study that said that 68,000 Americans a year, 68,000 Americans die as a result of not getting to access insurance or getting life-saving claims denied. 68,000 Americans a year. That's a number Al-Qaeda could only dream of. Okay, so what do we do about it? Right, what do we do about it? Because we can't afford to do anything else. We can't afford some big socialist Medicare for all system. Or so we're told. The same media that is, and politicians that are sponsored by the corporations that tell us that there's something wrong with our souls when we try to when we're having difficulty finding compassion for someone who is an architect of a system that kills 68,000 Americans a year, those same folks ask all the time, well, how do we pay for it? How do we pay for it? We've heard this before, right? How do we pay for it? The same NIH study said that if we switched to a Medicare for All system, we would save $3 trillion over a 10-year period. And if you don't believe the NIH, the Republicans wanted to make sure that they could prove that healthcare was really, really expensive, and so the Koch brothers did their own study. That one proved that we would save $2 trillion over a 10-year period. So, $2 to $3 trillion a year, 68,000 American lives, and people are doing vigilante political retribution in the streets. My question is not how do we pay for it? My question is how do we afford not to? How do we afford not to? The question isn't whether or not we can pay to give everyone in this country what they need. We're the richest nation in the world. We have an abundance of resources. We have more than enough for every single person's basic human rights to be met. The question is, how do we compel our politicians to make it happen? So here's the thing. In 2020, I was really, really hopeful. I was really, really hopeful because all these polls started coming back saying that 60 to 80% of Americans, not Democrats, Americans, wanted and supported a universal government-sponsored single-payer health care plan. 60 to 80% of Americans. And so the politicians heard that and they're like, yep, me too, I want that too. Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren were out there, but pretty soon the rest of them started coming. Pete Buttigieg was saying to everyone who would listen that Medicare for All was the middle ground between what we have now and a completely government-run system like the NIH in the UK, right? So Pete Buttigieg was out there arguing for Medicare for All as the middle ground, but you know who gave the best answer I've ever heard in response to a healthcare question? Kamala Harris. It was Kamala Harris. She was asked, everyone was asked, well, what? You just want to get rid of private insurance altogether? You want to rip people's doctors away from them? A really neutral framing from the press. And even Bernie Sanders kind of waffled. He was like, well, we can have private insurance for things like plastic surgery. And Kamala Harris said, no, we have to get rid of all of that. You cannot have a moral system that profits off of people's illness and injury. You can't do it. You cannot pit profit against basic human needs because there will always be an incentive to withhold those needs for money. That's why you cannot have a moral system that has a private defense system. Private contractors are immoral because there will always be a compulsion and an incentive to have more war. Private prisons are immoral because there will always be a compulsion and an incentive to keep more people locked up. If capitalism wants to go hog wild with like sports cars and designer bags, I'm all for it. But we cannot have for-profit systems for human needs because nobody needs a Ferrari or a Louis Vuitton bag, or at least no one's going to fundamentally suffer if they don't have one. But if you start taking away people's human rights, not only is there a mark on the soul of our collective selves, our collective humanity, but there's only so much pressure you can put human beings under before they begin to rise up. Now here, I want to be real clear. I don't think Brian Thompson should have been murdered. I am against murder. I think it is immoral on principle. And I don't think that vigilante justice is a good thing, one, out of principle, because again, I'm against all murder. But two, because I don't want any yahoo with a gun deciding they're the ones that get to decide who lives and dies. That's not a good system for any of us. So I don't think what happened is a good thing. I don't think that it's right. I don't think it's moral or a good idea. And I think that we would be remiss to ignore the nationwide surge of response that has come in the wake of a CEO being killed. There was a message taped to United Healthcare's window, or the door to the window to the door to their office that said, "One vigilante has moved the discourse on healthcare more than decades of peaceful protest." JFK said, "Those who make peaceful revolution impossible will make violent revolution inevitable." We are seeing what is happening in this country. A couple of days after all of these politicians were out there saying, "Medicare for all," the New York Times reported on all of them getting a visit from the health lobby. And all of them changed their tune. Even Elizabeth Warren. Bernie Sanders was the lone guy out there still yelling about healthcare, but if you've been the only old lone guy out there yelling in a room about healthcare for 60 years, you're pretty easy to ignore. So here's the thing. I'll say this before I get to the thing. I didn't know if I was going to say this. I feel like I need to. There were groups of mothers that get together and talk to each other about how the heck can we provide for our kids in this ridiculous system. And one time when I was with one of them said, "I understand now why people blow up buildings." She wasn't saying that she was going to blow up a building. She was saying, "I understand why people see what's going on, see what's allowed to go on, and don't just feel the need to scream and stop it."
Damn it. Son of a fuck.
This last week, a mother in Florida
Shit.
was on the phone getting denied service for one of her children. And she said angrily at the end of the phone call, defend, depose, deny, which were the words etched in the bullets that were shot at Brian Thompson. Defend, defy, depose. Defend, deny, depose. You people are next. That woman then had police come to her house, and she is currently being held on $100,000 of bond and facing 15 years in prison for an angry outburst, a justified angry outburst. And the judge that is holding her admitted that she does not think this woman is a threat. She's a housewife who does not own a gun and has no record. But the judge said, well, the state of the country means that we need to hold her. That's a clear message. We are either going to get more authoritarian and hold people and silence them, or we are going to rise up and demand rights. Now, here's the part that really, really pertains to us in this room, because most of the people in this room, myself included, are some of the comfortable folks who are not on the front lines of getting their human rights taken away. Not everyone, but a lot of people in this room are more comfortable than a lot of the people out of this room in this neighborhood right now. The only time in history that human rights have ever been defended and upheld was when people who were not in jeopardy of getting them taken away stood up and said, we must. We are on a precipice right now in this country, and it's gonna get worse in January. And we must look at our neighbors and say, I need you to be taken as good a care of as I am, better, because I want to be taken better care of. We must come together as a people and say, not only is it our moral duty as Unitarian Universalists to defend the well-being and dignity of every single soul on the planet, but it is also of political necessity that we no longer allow people to languish outside of walls and borders that we build to put up the veneer of our own safety. Y'all, this is a moment in world history where we have a choice. We can choose to take really, really, really good care of each other or kind of watch it all burn. I know what I'm going to do. Y'all with me? Well, then, amen and blessed be. I'm coming for you. We are, and now we are going to have an amazing song and be inspired by our beautiful choir.
Let every good fellow join in the song. We sing for justice. It's justice for everyone, pass it along. We sing for justice. We sing for peace. We sing for peace. We sing for peace. We sing for peace. We sing for justice. A friend on the left and a friend on the right. We sing for justice. It's love and good fellowship, let us unite. We sing for justice. We sing for peace. We sing for peace. We sing for peace. We sing for peace. We sing for justice. Now wider and wider our circle extends. We sing for justice. We sing for our neighbors in faraway lands. We sing for justice. We sing for peace. We sing for peace. We sing for peace. We sing for peace. We sing for justice. Let every good person now join in the song. We sing for justice. It's justice and everyone pass it along. We sing for justice. We sing for peace. We sing for peace. We sing for peace. We sing for peace. We sing for justice.
All right, we're going to do the Detroit thing now where we form a circle around the perimeter of the sanctuary. This is a time to face one another and appreciate all who joined together to build this beloved community today. If there is someone who needs to remain seated, please include them in the circle by standing near them or extending an arm to them. Some may want to hold hands, others may not. Our connections exist either way. Held in the loving presence of those who have gathered in this sacred space, we together will extinguish our chalice.
Please repeat after me. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of hope. The warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
I'll leave you with the words from historian of American slavery, Eugene G. Giovesi, speaking about Nat Turner, a man who led a violent slave revolt. What judgment should be rendered on a society, the evils of which reached such proportions that only madmen are sane enough to challenge them? Go in peace, return in love. Amen.
I guess remote people don't need to hear the piano.
He didn't play earlier either, so.